In the ethereal realm of dreams, Liora, the goddess of dreams, moved gracefully through the sea of shimmering stars. Each star held a dream, a vibrant, fleeting vision that she spun like silk from her fingertips. She watched with a satisfied smile as the creations drifted down to the mortal world, filling the minds of sleepers with fantastical adventures, lost loves, and impossible wonders. Her realm was a place of endless possibilities, a sanctuary where the imagination could soar freely. But something was wrong tonight. Liora sensed it before she saw it, a disturbance in the delicate weave of her dreamscape. One of her stars, a vivid dream of a giant golden dragon, quivered violently and burst forth from the dream realm, plummeting toward the waking world like a meteor. No, Liora gasped, reaching out, but it was too late. The dream shattered the barrier between the realms, crashing into the streets of a small village below. She could hear the cries of confused mortals as the vision of the dragon roared through their town, its shimmering wings casting shadows over their homes. Liora's heart raced with panic. The dream realm was supposed to be separate, a place that only touched the mortal world in the quiet moments of sleep. If her dreams were bleeding into reality, it could mean disaster, chaos, confusion, and the blurring of what was real and what was imagined. There's only one that can help me with this, Liora whispered, her voice tinged with both fear and resolve. With a flick of her hand, she summoned a portal, its surface rippling like water. She stepped through it, leaving the dream realm behind. On the other side, she found herself in a stark, sunlit field where the vibrant colors of the world gave way to the muted hues of reality. Standing before her was Riven, the god of reality. His presence was solid and grounding, in sharp contrast to Liora's ethereal glow. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable, but tinged with a hint of curiosity. Liora, Riven said calmly, I wasn't expecting you. What brings the goddess of dreams to the waking world? Something terrible, she replied, her voice wavering. My dreams are escaping into reality. I don't understand how it's happening. I need your help. Riven's eyes narrowed, and he tilted his head slightly, listening to the distant sounds of confusion coming from the village. I can feel it, he said. The barrier between our realms is weakening. But why? Liora asked. I've woven the dreams as I always have. What could be causing this? Riven glanced back at her, his expression serious. It's not your dreams that have changed, Liora, he said softly. It's the mortals. They've lost their sense of wonder, their connection to imagination. Without it, the barrier weakens, and your visions spill over into their reality. Liora's heart sank. Then we must find a way to restore the balance, she said, before it's too late. As Liora and Riven made their way to the heart of the mortal world, they witnessed the chaos their fractured barrier had caused. In the streets of the capital city, a giant translucent whale swam through the sky, its massive fins creating gusts of wind that sent market stalls toppling. The children laughed and pointed, delighted by the spectacle, but the adults looked on with fear and confusion. It's beautiful, Liora whispered, watching the whale glide gracefully overhead. But it shouldn't be here. Riven nodded, his face grim. Dreams are meant to inspire, to offer glimpses of what could be, not to overwhelm the senses with what isn't real. They passed a garden where a bed of roses had transformed into singing flowers, their voices rising in harmonious melody. A few villagers stopped to listen, tears streaming down their faces, but most hurried past, clutching their heads as if the sound was unbearable. Why are they reacting like this? Liora asked, her voice filled with sorrow. Dreams are meant to bring joy. Because they've forgotten how to dream, Riven replied. The harshness of their lives has dulled their sense of wonder. They become too grounded in the practical, the tangible. When faced with the fantastical, they don't know how to process it anymore. Liora looked around, her heart breaking. The beauty of her dreams had become a source of fear. We have to fix this, she said. But how? Riven paused, his gaze fixed on a small child who had stopped to play with a glowing butterfly made of pure starlight, one of Liora's creations. The child's face was lit up with awe, untouched by the worries that plagued the adults. There is still hope, Riven said. The children haven't lost their imagination. We can use that spark to reignite the wonder in the hearts of the adults. We must be careful. We cannot force them to dream again. We can only guide them. Liora's face brightened with a glimmer of hope. Then we must show them, she said. Show them the beauty of dreams without disrupting the balance of their reality. Riven turned to her, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Then let's do it together, he said. For once, dream and reality must dance as one. Liora nodded, extending her hand to him. As their fingers intertwined, the air around them shimmered, a bridge forming between the realms. Together they set out to weave a new vision, one that could restore the balance without breaking the fragile boundary between what is real and what is imagined. Liora and Riven walked side by side through the mortal world, the boundary between the realms thin but holding steady. They moved as one, a goddess of ethereal light and a god of unyielding strength, blending their powers to create moments that shimmered with possibility. The first stop was a small, dry village where the air was filled with the sound of hammers and the clatter of wheels. The people moved mechanically, their faces drawn and tired, their eyes focused only on the ground. Liora felt a pang of sorrow as she watched them. These were souls untouched by dreams, trapped in the grind of daily life. "Let me show you how we can bring them back," she said, turning to Riven. He nodded, stepping back to let her work. Liora closed her eyes and lifted her hands to the sky, her fingers weaving delicate threads of stardust. The air around her shimmered, and a soft, glowing mist began to drift through the streets. The villagers looked up in confusion as tiny orbs of light floated down, each one a seed of a dream she had crafted. The mist enveloped a group of children first, their eyes lighting up as the dream seeds burst into vibrant butterflies, their wings painted with colors that didn't exist in the waking world. The children laughed and chased after them, their joy infectious. Slowly, the adults looked up from their work, drawn by the sound of laughter. One by one, the villagers paused, watching as the butterflies danced through the air. For a moment, the weight of their worries lifted. An old man reached out, catching a butterfly on his finger. It dissolved into a memory of his youth, summer spent running through fields of flower, carefree and full of hope. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Do you see?" Liora asked softly. "You still remember what it's like to dream. I just needed a reminder." Riven watched the transformation with a thoughtful expression. "But this is fleeting," he said. "The joy will fade once they return to their daily lives." "Not if we can give them something to hold on to," Liora replied. "A moment where dream and reality meet, a spark that rekindles their wonder." She raised her hands again, and this time, Riven stepped forward. He placed his hand over hers, adding to his own power, a grounding force that gave the vision weight. Together they created a towering tree, its leaves made of shimmering light. It stood in the center of the village, a permanent reminder of the beauty that dreams could bring. The villagers gathered around the tree, their faces filled with awe. They whispered to each other, pointing at the glowing leaves, their expressions softening with wonder. "We did it," Riven said, his voice low and filled with admiration. "No," Liora corrected, squeezing his hand gently. "We did it. We brought them a piece of the dream realm, but anchored it in their reality. Now it's up to them to keep the wonder alive." They watched as the villagers began to tell stories around the tree, sharing dreams they had once forgotten. The line between reality and imagination was no longer a harsh divide, but a bridge connecting two worlds. Encouraged by their success, Liora and Riven continued their journey, visiting towns and villages across the land. In each place they left small gifts, a cascade of glowing petals over a market square, a songbird made of stardust that sang tunes from forgotten dreams. The mortals were hesitant at first, but little by little, the enchantments began to lift their spirits. It was in the great city of Eldon, where the hustle and bustle of daily life drowned out all else, that they faced their greatest challenge. The city was a maze of stone and steel, filled with people who had long abandoned their dreams in favor of wealth and power. The sky above was gray with smoke, the streets filled with noise and commotion. "This place feels heavy," Liora said, her radiant glow dimming as they walked through the crowded streets. Riven frowned. "It's weighed down by reality," he said. "The people here have lost themselves in their ambition. It will take more than a dream to reach them." Liora nodded. "Then we need to find the heart of the city, the place where their spirits still whisper of what they once desired." They made their way to the oldest part of Eldon, where an ancient oak tree stood alone in a small park. It was surrounded by towering buildings, its branches twisted and gnarled, but it was still alive. Barely. Children played around the space, and the elderly sat on benches, watching with wistful smiles. "This is it," Liora said. "The heart of the city, the place where memories of dreams still linger." She knelt before the tree, placing her hands against its bark. The ground beneath her feet pulsed with magic, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers that weren't really there. Riven joined her, resting his hand over hers. Together, they poured their combined power into the tree, weaving dreams into its roots and reality into its branches. The oak shuddered, its branches creaking as it began to change. Leaves of silver and gold sprouted, shimmering in the dim light. Flowers made of moonlight bloomed, casting a soft glow over the park. The noise of the city seemed to fade away, replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves. People gathered, their faces lit with awe. For the first time in years, the city paused. Parents pointed to the flowers, telling their children stories of magic and wonder. The elderly closed their eyes, breathing in the scent of memories long forgotten. "This is what they needed," Riven said quietly. "A reminder that there's more to life than just the tangible." that dreams have their place even in a world grounded in reality. Liora looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You helped me to give it to them," she said. "Now we've shown them the way. It's up to the mortals to keep the balance." Liora and Riven stood together at the edge of the cliff, overlooking the vast expanse of the mortal realm. Below, the world was changing. Villages and cities alike had begun to hum with a new kind of energy. The boundary between dreams and reality, once fractured and weak, now shimmered with a soft, golden light. It was no longer a barrier, but a veil, gently separating the two realms while allowing glimpses of each side. "We've done what we can," Liora said, her voice filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. "The balance, it's fragile. If the mortals lose their sense of wonder again, the barrier will weaken and my dreams will flood into their world once more." Riven nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's true. We've shown them the beauty of dreams, but they must choose to keep that wonder alive in their hearts. We cannot force it upon them." Below, in a quiet valley, a group of children gathered around a glowing pool that Liora had created. They dipped their fingers into the water, pulling out threads of stardust that danced in the air, forming tiny constellations. Their laughter echoed up to the cliff, filling the air with the sound of pure, untamed joy. An elderly woman stood nearby, watching the children with tears in her eyes. She turned to a young man beside her and said, "I remember a time when the stars felt this close, when anything seemed possible. I had forgotten what it felt like to dream." The young man smiled, his own eyes shining with a new light. "We can dream again," he said. "We just need to remember how." Riven watched the scene unfold, feeling a rare smile tug at his lips. "Perhaps they will find the balance after all," he said. But before Liora could respond, the sky darkened and a chill wind swept through the air. The shimmering veil between the realms waved, flickering as if caught in a storm. The laughter below turned to gasps of fear as the constellations dissolved into smoke. "What's happening?" Liora asked, panic rising in her chest. "The barrier, it's falling again." Riven's face hardened. "It's the final test," he said. "The mortals must make a choice now, to embrace the unknown or to retreat back into the safety of the mundane." Together they descended into the valley where the villagers were backing away from the pool, their faces filled with fear and doubt. The elderly woman stepped forward, her hands trembling, but her eyes were steady. "We cannot fear the dreams," she said, her voice strong despite her age. "They are a part of us, just as reality is. We must embrace both." The young man stepped forward, taking her hand. "She's right," she said. "We've been given a gift, a glimpse of what could be. Let's not turn away now." One by one, the villagers stepped forward, reaching out to touch the veil of light. As they did, the flickering ceased and the veil steadied. The sky brightened, the sun breaking through the clouds. Liora felt tears well up in her eyes. "They've done it," she whispered. "They've chosen wonder over fear." Riven turned to her, his smile warm and genuine. "You doubted them," he teased gently. She laughed, wiping away a tear. "Maybe I did, but I've never been happier to be proven wrong." The two gods stood back, watching as the veil solidified into a shimmering, translucent curtain that danced in the wind. It was a perfect blend, dreams on one side, reality on the other, each enhancing the beauty of the other without overpowering it. "We must leave them now," Riven said. "Our work here is done." Liora nodded. "They've learned to dream again, and they found the balance on their own. It's time for us to step back and let them live." Together they ascended to the heights of the sky, where the dream realm and reality intertwined. Liora cast one last loving glance at the world below, her heart swelling with pride. "They will be alright," she said softly, "as long as they remember that the power of dreams is not in the escape, but in the inspiration it brings to the waking world." Riven took her hand, his touch grounding and solid, and the strength of reality lies not in crushing the imagination, but in giving it a foundation to stand on. They turned away, disappearing into the ethereal glow of the realms, but even as they left, the mortals below could still feel the presence, a whisper in the wind, a sparkle in the stars. The dreams continued to come, not as chaotic intrusions, but as gentle reminders of what could be. The veil held strong, and the world moved forward, its people inspired by the visions they had once feared. And in the quiet moments just before dawn, when the world was still and the line between sleep and wake blurred, the mortals could feel the dance of Liora and Riven, guiding them toward a future where dreams and reality walked hand in hand.